General James Harold Doolittle was born in the early winter of 1896. He spent most of his young childhood up in Alaska. In 1910, Jimmy moved to California to attend school there. One day, his class went to visit the International Air Meet in Los Angeles. It was during this trip that Jimmy saw his very first airplane. Jimmy was fascinated with airplanes, and 7 years later, he enlisted as a flying cadet in the Signal Corps Reserve. After 1 year, he had risen to become a second lieutenant. When World War I broke out, Jimmy served by staying in the United States and being a flight instructor. He worked at many different places around the country, sometimes teaching how to fly, other times teaching how to fire guns. After the war, Jimmy continued to fly. He became one of the most famous pilots of his time. He was the first to make a cross-country flight from Florida to California, only stopping to refuel his gas once. In 1932, Jimmy set the world's highest speed record for land planes, flying at 296 miles per hour in the Shell Speed Dash. Eventually, he won 3 of the highest air racing trophies of his time. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, pulling the United States into World War II. Jimmy became a lieutenant colonel and was given the assignment to plan the very first air raid back on Japan. Jimmy not only came up with a plan, but volunteered to go and lead the attack himself. The plan was named Doolittle's Raid and was made up of 16 bombers that would take off from the USS Hornet ship. On April 18th, about 5 months after the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor, the plan went into action. Led by Jimmy himself, all 16 planes successfully took off and headed towards Japan. After dropping their bombs, the planes were running low on fuel. Jimmy's crew had to bail out over China. It was nighttime and the weather was stormy. After regrouping on the ground, Jimmy led his crew back to safety over the American lines. Jimmy was awarded the Medal of Honor for planning and leading the attack on Japan. Throughout the rest of the war, Jimmy went on to earn many other awards and medals. He was the first person to ever win both of the nation's highest honors. In 1985, President Ronald Reagan promoted Jimmy to a full 4-star general. In 1993, Jimmy Doolittle died. He was buried at the Arlington National Cemetery. He is most famously remembered for leading the Doolittle Raid just in time when the country needed a spark of hope. He had lived for almost a full century and had done much more than his share for his country. He proved that nothing can stop the heart of a volunteer.